Okay, great. So we're here at the sewing machine with my Paul and Peter shapes, and I just want to show you how to stitch these together. Now for these shapes, I actually do not use pins, and so I just want to show you a technique that I use for how to sew these shapes together without using pins. Now, the way that this shape goes together, somebody had a question on the AccuQuilt Facebook page recently about how to align these shapes, and wouldn't it really be better if the melon shape had its tip cut off so that it could match? And the answer to that is no, but I can't really prove it to you until we stitch these together. So let's talk about how to align these. So there's a tip of the melon shape that's here, and there's a tip of Paul, or a tip of Peter, this larger shape. So what you want to do is you actually want to align the outside tip of Peter, which is this green shape on top, with the very tip of Paul. So I can zoom in for you to be able to see that. So again, align the very tip of Peter and Paul together, so the outside of Peter with the outside of Paul. Now Paul, the melon shape, is right side up, and Peter is going to be right side down. Right side down. So basically you want right sides together. I'm using a solid piece of fabric for the larger shape, so I don't have a right or wrong side, but you want the shapes to be right sides together, and again the melon shape is facing up. Now the melon shape, or this very curved piece, is what you want on the bottom. That's the piece that you want following the 1/4 inch of your sewing machine foot. Once you take those 4 or 5 stitches, and again this is with a 1/4, this is with a 1/4 inch foot, or with a 1/4 inch foot. So you want this melon shape to always follow the 1/4 inch mark. I have a foot with a little metal edge on the side of it, so I'm always able to kind of watch that 1/4 inch line. So in my left hand, I'm holding the Peter shape, so this green shape I'm just holding with my left hand, and I'm using my right hand to guide the melon shape. And what you want is for these pieces to meet together under the needle. So I'm kind of holding this up a little bit so that I can watch the 1/4 inch mark on the melon shape, but I'm just making sure that these are going to meet under the needle. So I'm not holding it way back here, I'm holding it kind of close in and making sure that they're just going to meet under the needle, and I'm just watching this melon shape so that it is constantly following that 1/4 inch mark. I'm going slow. Curved shapes are something that you can certainly go faster with as you get better, but at first you want to go slow. And you may need to stop and readjust a little bit, but again, you're just looking for these 2 shapes to meet under the needle, and you want the melon shape to be at the 1/4 inch. So you're always just kind of watching for that. And what you're going to see kind of magically here is that as I come around, you can see these points starting to match up. So they're not going to match up until they get right up underneath the needle here, but you can kind of see, if I poke this out a little bit, how those shapes, or that point, just kind of magically meets. So I'm just adjusting this a little bit to kind of pull the bulk of that underneath. Again, grabbing Peter and making sure that they meet under the needle, watching Paul as the melon shape kind of cuts around here, and that's the piece that I'm just making sure is sitting at the 1/4 inch mark. So as Peter gets a little more spindly here, it's a little harder to grab onto, but you just want to make sure that you have hold of that. So I'm just kind of talking you through this here. Again, they're meeting under the needle, and as I come around this last little bit, you're going to see too how these edges just kind of perfectly meet. Okay, and you want to stitch off. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. And this piece that's kind of on the end here, I'm piecing a double wedding ring, so any opportunity that I get to piece that double wedding ring, I use it for my leaders and enders usually. Alright, so you're going to end up with a shape that's kind of funny looking. It's misshapen. Let me zoom out here a little bit so that you can see more of this shape. So it's a little misshapen. It looks kind of odd and wrinkled. But what you want to do is take this to your sewing, to your iron, and you want to press the seam allowance toward Paul. So that's how you're going to get a really nice, curve, a nice flat curve. So let me show you one that I've pressed already. So here's my my Peter and Paul shape stitched together. It's pressed out, and I want to call your attention to the tip of this shape here. So you can see that at the end of this, if I zoom in just a little bit here, so at the end of this you can see where those points meet, where those 2 points meet. But this is you're seeing the wrong side of Peter, the wrong side of Paul exposed here, and some stitching at the top. This is exactly what you want. So I don't want you to worry about that, because those pieces actually get caught in the seam allowance as you stitch these blocks together. And I'll show you that here with the sample that I did. So these are two of the Peter and Paul's stitched together, and you can see that extra piece in here gets caught in the seam allowance. So as these get stitched together, you actually end up with a very perfect double melon shape with the points lined up and the bulk really reduced in the corners. So those are my my cutting and pressing and stitching tips for the Rob Peter to Pay Paul block. I hope that you found that useful and that you feel more confident stitching curves.